Hi, welcome to the Dating Debrief. It's finally happening. How are you doing? Before we get into it, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and stuff. This is my first time going live on YouTube as well. So I'm like, oh my God, is it going to work? Obviously, I've been live on all the other platforms and all the other places. I do that regularly. But there was a bit of me that was like, is it going to work? So I'm glad that it is. I'm hoping that my audio is all okay and we are good to go. Maybe I should check it on my phone. Should I? I don't know. I think we're going to be all right. I think we're doing okay. So, the dating debrief, how I went from anxious, codependent, and unable to speak up in relationships to confidently dating, able to set solid boundaries, and having the time of my love life. It's gonna be juicy. It's gonna be a juicy one. I have got some notes. If you see me looking down, I'm reading the notes. To get the most out of this masterclass, I would like to encourage you to switch off some distractions, to maybe turn the notifications off, set aside some time if you're watching it on the replay, and close down some apps. Maybe grab a pen and paper if you are the note taking type. But also, in saying all that, I am very much understanding in terms of like ADHD people. Hi, where are you? Like me, where I like to be doing multiple things at once as I listen to things. So if you don't close everything down, it's not going to be the end of the world. But I hope that you can tune in, be present, get involved, ask your questions in the chat, drop them in there as we go through. And I'm going to get to the end of the session and then I'm going to answer any and all questions right at the very end. Because if I answer them as we go through it, I'm just going to get super distracted. If you are here watching the replay, if you are watching the video afterwards, oh my God, that's annoying, that's naughty. If you're watching the replay, then let me know that you're here watching the replay. Ask me a question in there, say hello. Be nice to hear from you. Come say hi. And if you are not already if you are not already subscribed to the Date with Confidence podcast channel, get subscribing so that you can catch all the latest episodes of the podcast. So, what are you going to expect? What can you expect from this masterclass? I don't know why it's called a masterclass. It's like a masterclass, workshop, webinar. It's essentially just an extended podcast episode. That's how I like to think of it because I feel like masterclasses, you kind of get the vibe that it's lots of note taking and learning and you've got to really engage your brain. I don't feel like you're going to have to do that in this session. Grab yourself a cup of tea, sit and drink. And also, I don't know if you can see that, I've got an eye twitch right now that has been happening all day. And I'm like, stop twitching. It's really off-putting. Okay, this is not your standard workshop. It's not your standard masterclass where I'm going to be talking you through a bunch of slides. We got no slides. This is also not the kind of class where I'm just going to give you a framework to follow or teach you the what and not the how. I'm not just going to start telling you like this is what you need to do and not giving you the how. I'm giving you everything. So in the dating debrief, I'm going behind the scenes of my actual dating life and relationship life or lack of relationship life might have anything to do with love and relationships. That's what we're talking about right now. And I'm going to be sharing some of the biggest and most embarrassing mistakes I've made in my relationships. Oh, I feel a little bit embarrassing sharing those things, but it's fine. It's good. You're going to learn from my mistakes. I'm going to share the hardest parts of dating that we can all relate to and how I have navigated through them myself. I'm going to share what it took for me to actually feel confident dating and to feel confident asking for what I need when I finally started dating decent men. It's scary. You can do it. And how I was able to brave the dating world after the breakup that destroyed my entire sense of self and left my confidence on the floor just 4 and a bit years ago. Hello. It's nice to see people joining. Hi, Sally. Oh, you made it. Yay. Okay. I'm going to try not to get distracted by the chat. So I'm just going to get back into my zone. But dropping comments, questions, anything as we go through. Okay, so let's start with confidently dating. I was not confidently dating at all. Before I entered the dating arena again and started living my like best dating life, I went through the breakup of all breakups. It was traumatic. It was unexpected. It left me in a pile of tears and tissues on the floor for days, weeks, months. It literally destroyed everything about me. It was horrendous. And the last thing that I wanted to do when this happened was think about meeting someone else. I already thought I'd met my person. I thought this was my person for the rest of my life. There were a few things that weren't amazing about the relationship, But I had my rose tinted glasses on. I was head over heels in love with him. I was like, I'm never going to get better than him. I thought I'd met my person. And then when it ended completely out of the blue, completely unexpectedly, I lost my entire identity. I lost my sense of self. I lost my self confidence. I hated who I was. I hated everything that I was looking at in the mirror. I was the lowest of low. So I spent a couple of years dedicating my time and energy to myself, dedicating my time and energy to healing from that heartbreak, to processing the breakup. Because one thing that I had not really done with previous breakups was actually process them. I had been through a similar-ish situation, in terms of like the trauma level of the breakup a few years before, with my previous boyfriend. And I'd never really processed the breakup. I'd never really dealt with the emotions from it. I'd never really dealt with all the shit that I'd been through with him, and I very much carried that into my last relationship. So I spent a couple of years like really focusing on myself. And then I got to the point where I was like, "Oh, I think I might date now." And it was when I was at my brother's wedding. So 2 months after my catastrophic breakup, where I was, like, still in pieces on the floor, my brother got engaged. And it was one of those moments where I was, like, obviously over the moon for them, like, the happiest for them, because I love my sister-in-law to death, like, we have got such a great relationship. I'm super happy for them, but it was, like, another stab in my heart of, like, that should have been me. I'm the older sister. I'm the one that should have been getting engaged first. I should be getting married first. I'd been with my ex for 5 years at this point, and they'd only been together a couple of years. It was, like, really, really difficult. And I knew I didn't wanna date anyone before the wedding, because I was like, "I want this wedding to be about them. I want to be able to celebrate my love for them. I wanna be able to enjoy myself as bridesmaid." I knew I was not interested in dating anyone before the wedding that took place, I think, about 18 months after the breakup, because I was like, "I don't wanna have to, like, make sure that a guy that I'm seeing is okay at this wedding. This wedding is about them and me and us having fun together." And then at the wedding, I had booked an extra night stay in the hotel because I knew that I was gonna be hungover as fuck, and nobody likes to travel on a hangover. So I'd booked myself an extra night in the hotel where they got married, so I had 2 nights there. And that night, after the day after the wedding, I was like, "Okay, I want this now, like, I am ready to meet someone. I want love in my life. I want what they have. I want this beautiful relationship." Like, they've got such a wonderful marriage and such a wonderful relationship with each other. I was like, "If that's possible for them, I would like that too." So I made the decision to start dating again. And that very night, got myself on Hinge and set up my first ever dating profile. I'd never been on the dating apps before because they had come out when I was already in my long-term relationship before. So I finally went on the dating apps and was like, "Oh my God, this is so much fun." Like, my ADHD brain was like, "Oh, look at all these amazing people that I can swipe through. This is like a game to play." And then I very quickly obviously got bored. So I kind of ignored it for a little while and then went back on there and started matching with people. And then I started to make some mistakes when I first dipped my toe into the dating pool. And one of the biggest mistakes that I made, that I don't think enough people talk about, was over romanticizing the idea of what my first date with this stranger on a dating app was going to be like. So I'd matched with a few people. I'd been chatting to a few people. I had arranged my first date with someone, which I'm going to tell you about in a moment because that's another point in here. That didn't quite go to plan. And then I went on this first date, and it was the first date that I'd had in over 7 years, because I'd been in this relationship with my ex for 5 years. Well, yeah, a bit longer. But it was the first like date that I had been on in 7 years. So I got myself all ready. I worked through my confidence exercises. I got myself feeling confident. I was like, "Do you know what? going to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. It's going to be amazing. And then I started to build up this picture in my head. I was like, I'm going to go and I'm going to meet him and we're going to have butterflies and there's going to be an instant spark and it's going to be this fairy tale. And we'd been communicating quite well. And he had an Irish accent. And I'm like, oh my God, I love an Irish accent. So it was going to be this perfect, romantic first date from a movie. And I met him at the station. He was late. I got there first. I don't even think he was late. I think I just got there really early. Met the station and I was sat there waiting and I was like, well, this isn't quite the fairy tale that I was hoping for, because I was kind of hoping that I'd be swept off my feet and I would feel amazing. But that wasn't the case. So I like sat at the train station for 15 minutes, like, okay, where is he? Where is he? And then he comes towards me and I'm like, okay, like he's nice. Like he's a nice guy. Excuse me. So we meet, we get chatting. Hang on. Oh, we get chatting. And then we're like, okay, where's the bar that we're going to go to? Find the bar. I think it was closed. Anyway, to cut what will be a ridiculously long story short, the date was fine. He was fine. He was a really nice guy. He made me laugh a lot. The conversation was flowing. He was a nice guy. I could definitely have had a worse first date. It could definitely have been worse. And had I not built up this massive picture in my head of what I thought this date was going to be like, it probably would have gone a lot better and I probably would have seen him again. But because I had put these massive expectations on on what I thought the date was going to be like, I kind of ruined it for myself because I didn't allow it to just be what it was. I didn't go with an open mind. I didn't go relaxed. I didn't go with this laid back, I'll see this guy, I'll meet him, we'll have a nice time. If it's good, it's good. If it's not the end of the world. And that was my fault. That was the mistake that I made. I had over romanticized this date. So that was that was like one of the biggest mistakes I made. The next big mistake that I made was making everything a me problem. So when a guy behaved appallingly on a date, I used to make it mean that I was the problem, that there was something wrong with me. So way back when, this is when I was dating in my 20s. So we're like rewinding the clock a little bit. I went on a date after a really horrendous breakup. So this was my second boyfriend. Well, it was like a whirlwind romance. I was head over heels. Traumatic breakup, came out of the blue, was unexpected, destroyed me. Completely destroyed me. And this guy that I worked with had asked me out on a date. I didn't actually work directly with him, but he worked in the building that I worked in, and he asked me out on a date. And I was like, oh, this is like, okay, like this will be nice because obviously I haven't been on a date with anyone for a while. This will maybe give me a bit of a boost in confidence. He was a few years older than me. So I was like, that's nice. He's older. So he took me out for dinner, went to a local restaurant. He picked me up from my house, which I don't think I'd let anyone pick me up from my house now, but he picked me up from my house in his car. He drove us to the restaurant and we were having quite a nice chat. So I thought, having a nice chat, and then his phone rang. We're sitting in this restaurant. Obviously, it's packed out. It is midweek, but there are a lot of people around. And his phone rings and he answers it. He answers his phone at the middle of the table. And he's at the middle of the table, during the middle of the dinner, and he sits there chatting with someone for, I shit you not, a good 5 minutes minimum. And at the time, my confidence was so low that I thought, oh my God, I must be the worst date. Like, I must be such a boring date for him to sit there and answer the phone. If only I was better, if only I was more interesting, if only I was more attractive, if only I flirted more, maybe he wouldn't have answered his phone. Now, as a 33-year-old woman, I know that his rude behavior had nothing to do with me. But anytime I went on a date with someone and they behaved in a bad way, I used to make it mean that I wasn't good enough. I used to make me the problem when that wasn't the case. And that really impacted future dates as well, because I'd be worried that I'd go on a future date and be like, oh, well, if I'm boring this time, like, what's he going to do? Like, is he going to get up and start flirting with a bartender or whatever it was? So that was the second big mistake that I made. And the third big mistake, leading into like following off the back of that one, was worrying that I wasn't going to be enough. So as I was getting ready for my dates, I would be worried and I would be telling myself these stories in my mind. I'd be so concerned about, what are they going to think of me? Would I be pretty enough for them? Would I be dressed nice enough? Would they find me attractive? Would I make them laugh? Would I be able to hold a good conversation? Would they like me? And all the worries going around and round in my mind would be, what would they think of me? Whereas now my thoughts are, I'm going to go and have a great time. If they like me, they like me. If there's a connection, there's a connection. If they don't, it's not the end of the world. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it, because my life was great before this person come along, and it's going to be just as good if they don't ever come into it again. But for so long, my thoughts and my attention and my energy was put on me not being good enough and worrying about whether I was going to be good enough or not. So, what really helped me to overcome each of these mistakes and learn from these mistakes, and to help me to start dating with confidence in myself and with confidence that I was going to have amazing dates, and the confidence that there were awesome guys out there that I could date, the thing that helped me get through this was something called the 90-90 mindset concept. Now, this is a concept that I created to help you feel confident in yourself every single day in every area of your life. And there are three core principles of this concept. The first being that you need to be 90% confident 90% of the time. You don't need to worry about being 100% confident 100% of the time, because that's an unrealistic goal that you're never ever going to achieve. You don't have to say to yourself, if I don't feel confident before this date, or if I don't feel confident during this date, then I'm a failure, or I've lost my confidence. Like, it's okay for you to have moments where you're not confident in yourself, and for you to have dates where you're not feeling your best. That's absolutely okay. And I've still had dates where they've been really good dates, but they've been impacted because of the way that I feel about myself. I went on a really lovely date with a genuinely lovely guy last year. I think it was last year. He was a great guy, but the whole time I was feeling disgusting in what I was wearing. I wasn't feeling good in my body. I was doubting myself. I could feel myself being more withdrawn than I normally am. And then when I went to the toilet after dinner, I'd got my period. So I was like, oh, okay, well, this makes sense. But during that date, my lack of confidence impacted how I showed up. And that's okay, because for 10% of the time, I give myself that grace. I'm not trying to be 100% confident 100% of the time. It's okay for you to have some shitty dates. It's okay for you to have dates where you don't feel that confident. So, principle number one, you only need to be 90% confident 90% of the time. So, I focused on that being my goal and getting myself to the point where the majority of the time I would feel confident in myself. The second principle of the 90-90 mindset concept is that you only need 90 seconds of confidence to do the brave thing. So before the dates that I started going on, and even at moments during the dates, when I was waiting for them to arrive, if I felt like a little bit anxious during the date, if they said something that made me question myself or I wasn't expecting, I would focus on bringing confidence into my body for 90 seconds. I would just sit there in my head, obviously, not out loud across the table from them. But I would say to myself, I'd take a few deep breaths and be like, I just need to be confident for the next 90 seconds. And if I could hold the confidence for those 90 seconds, this works really, really well when you're waiting for a date to arrive as well. When you're waiting for someone to show up, it's really beneficial for you to be like to breathe and count to 90. Well, I find it helpful to do the counting and just think, okay, after these 90 seconds, I'm going to have met them, I'm going to be on the date, then I can overcome the next hurdle and the next hurdle and the next hurdle. And soon you'll be so immersed in the date, in the conversation and everything that's going on, you won't need to focus on those 90 seconds. You just need that 90 seconds of bravery to push yourself out of the comfort zone and put yourself in a position that could ultimately lead to love, marriage, all the things that you want. And then the third core principle is that there are 3 layers of confidence that you need to work on to become 90% confident 90% of the time. So, in terms of dating, that looks like, or first of all, the 3 layers are think, act, and feel. And in terms of dating, that looks like for the think layer, challenging and changing your inner narrative. So, when you notice yourself, like I did, worrying about whether I would be enough and would we have fun and would they think I was attractive enough, flipping that completely on its head and saying, I am enough as who I am. I'm going to have so much fun tonight, no matter what. I'm going to make sure that I enjoy myself on this date. I feel good enough for who I am. I am confident in myself and really or like convincing yourself of your enoughness and of your worthiness and challenging any negative thoughts that come up. That helps you to show up confidently on the date. Then when it comes to the act layer, I really worked on practical actions, things like adjusting your posture. So at the moment, I mean, I'm hunched over because that's my default position. But as soon as you like roll your shoulders back, sit up straighter, you just naturally feel more confident because you're more open, you're taking up more space. You're not saying, oh, I'm hiding, like, look at me. Like, I've obviously done it because I'm comfortable and I'm reading these notes, but you're just taking up that space and you're saying, I am not afraid to take up space right now. I am not afraid to be a presence in this room or be a presence on this date. And honestly, if you're watching this, even if it's on the replay or live, try it right now and see how it instantly impacts your energy just from that simple shift. Other practical actions are things like applying confidence anchors. So jewelry is one for me. Like as soon as I put certain pieces of jewelry on, as soon as I do my hair and makeup in a certain way, instant confidence. It's like I'm stepping into my most confident persona, and then that allows me to show up as my most confident self. And then for the feel confident layer, I really practiced conjuring up feelings of confidence in my body on a daily basis so that confidence has started to become my default feeling. I don't have to put a lot of effort into feeling confident now. It's my natural state. It's how I feel daily. I don't have to wait to do something to feel confident in myself. I don't have to spend hours visualizing or meditating anymore. Like I can close my eyes, take a few deep breaths, bring confidence into my body because I know what it feels like. My body knows what confidence feels like. It's a very familiar feeling for me now, and I can bring it into my body within seconds. And when I can do that in any situation. So, as I said, if I'm waiting for somebody to meet me for that date, if I'm in the middle of the day and I've maybe zoned out and I need to come back to myself, if I've said something that I think is a little bit embarrassing on a date and I think, oh my God, what are they going to think of me now? I can just take a few deep breaths and go, no, come on, bring that confidence back into your body right now. So working on those 3 layers have been the biggest thing that have helped me to go from feeling anxious to confidently dating. Now, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was setting boundaries. So I was very codependent, unable to speak up in my past relationships, and I didn't have any boundaries. One, I didn't know what boundaries were for a start. And 2, I didn't feel like I could put those boundaries in place. So my entire past relationship for, I would say, a good 90-95% of it, we did what he wanted to do. We did what was important to him, the things that he wanted to do. We went to the places that he wanted to go to. I sacrificed a lot in that relationship. And the biggest mistakes that led me to doing that were allowing his needs and desires to be a priority because I was scared of abandonment, thinking that he was out of my league, so I needed to overcompensate, accepting bullshit behavior, and justifying their behavior. So we're going to look at each of those in a bit more detail. So the biggest mistake that I made, first of all, was allowing their needs. I say there because I did this in multiple relationships. It wasn't just my last one, but my last one was my most recent, so it's kind of fresh in my mind. I say fresh in my mind, it's been 4 years, but it's the freshest in my mind. But allowing their needs and desires to be the priority because I was scared of abandonment. So, for example, one of the stories that comes to mind was my ex and I, moved to an island in the Caribbean back in 2016. It's where he wanted to move to so that he could progress his career in scuba diving. And when we moved there, I started my business as a social media manager. So for those that don't know, I started out as a social media manager in 2016, 2017. And then a couple of years later, I moved into coaching. I was coaching other social media managers for a while. And now I've been a confidence coach since 2018, 2019, I think. And now I'm focusing a lot more on dating at the moment. But we moved to this Caribbean island where he wanted to go. And I hated it. Like, I did not like this island at all. I'd lived in Thailand for over a year when I was younger, in my like actually where I met my ex. I'd lived in Thailand on an island called Koh Tao for a year, and I was obsessed with this island. Like, I absolutely loved it. It was this tropical paradise. I loved my life there. I had tons of friends. I worked multiple different jobs, knew all the locals. I loved my life on that island. And when we moved to this island in the Caribbean, I kind of expected it to be the same. I kind of expected the same vibes, the same kind of beaches, the same scenery. That's what I was expecting. And it wasn't like that. And there's no shade to the island, but it was just not the place for me. It wasn't my vibe at all. So a few weeks into us being there, I think it was a couple of weeks into us being there, I was looking for other places that we could live together. So he'd gone for whatever the training course was. He'd gone for the course, which was, I don't know, a couple of weeks long, a month long, however long it was. So in my mind, I was like, okay, well, when he's done that and he's qualified, then we can look at jobs for him to do in the surrounding like Caribbean area, but somewhere that is mutually beneficial for us both. So I had become a digital nomad. I was like living the laptop lifestyle. I was running my own business. I really craved a community of people for me. He had his community, he had his friends, he had his people that he was now working with, or like learning from. He had his community. I felt incredibly alone. So I was looking places for us both to live so that we could have this mutually beneficial home life, so that I could have a life, he could have a life, and we could come together. But he he didn't like the idea. He was like straight up, no, we're not leaving. I like it here. I'm staying. So I sucked it up for a couple of months until it got to the point where I was like, no, we really need to go somewhere else. So we booked a one-way flight to go to the Dominican Republic. And just before we left, he got a job offer at this dive shop. So instead of moving to the Dominican Republic, I think we stayed there for like a week and we just took it as like a holiday. And then we went back to the island. And what during that period of me living there, for the most part, towards the end, I did like it a bit more. Like towards the end, I'd made some friends. I felt a bit more comfortable. I'd had breaks from the island because I'd come back to the UK a couple of times. I'd gone to visit friends and I'd gone to Greece with my mum for a couple of weeks. So I'd kind of had breaks from the island. And then I was like, oh, do you know what? I'm enjoying this a little bit more. Very much because I'd changed my mindset and focused on being grateful for the life that I was living rather than focusing on all the things I hated about it. But for the most part, whilst I was living on this island, I was like physically ill so much. I had tonsillitis 4 times within a year. Now, I don't get tonsillitis, touch wood. Like, I don't get ill like that. But 4 times in this year, I had tonsillitis. I also had parasites multiple times. My skin was the worst it has ever been in my life. I never had acne when I was in my teens, but I had terrible adult acne. And I was just not healthy in my body, in my mind, in my soul at all. But because this is where he wanted to be, and I was so obsessed with him, and I was so terrified that he would abandon me if I really spoke up for myself and said, "This is not good enough anymore." I stayed. I sacrificed my needs time and time and time again. And that was a massive, massive mistake on my part. I know that, but hindsight is a wonderful thing. Another huge mistake I made when it came to not really setting boundaries, like accepting bullshit in relationships, was this belief that he was out of my league. And because I felt like, and this has happened in like a couple of my relationships, I felt like I had to overcompensate by being the best girlfriend I could possibly be. Oh, my eyes twitching again. Oh, that's so weird. I felt like I had to be the best girlfriend possible. I thought that they were better looking than me, that they were funnier than me, that they were cleverer than me. Everybody loved them more than me. It was, I felt like I was not good enough to be with them, and I couldn't believe that they would actually want me as their girlfriend. And I lived with that for years. So I'd go above and beyond to try and please them, even though I don't know what my notes are supposed to say there, but it's not not English. I would go above and beyond to try and please them, and even that was not good enough. Even when I was trying my absolute best to be the most amazing girlfriend possible, that was not good enough. And that added to my low self-esteem. That made me feel like, okay, well, this belief that I'm not good enough is being proven right because I'm giving my all, I'm giving my everything, yet I'm still not enough from you. You're still messaging other girls, you're still flirting with other girls in front of me. You've probably cheated on me at least once. Like I my belief that he was out of my league or they were out of my league led me to overcompensating, which also meant that I didn't want to set boundaries. I didn't want to put things in place because I was so desperate that I would lose this person who had this status that was so much greater than mine. Another place where I went wrong in a lot of places. I'm reading all this, I'm like, I've got so many mistakes I've made. I have got so many mistakes, but I'm really hoping that my mistakes are going to really support you. Um, Accepting bullshit behavior multiple times. One of one of the biggest examples I can share with you. And one of the reasons that I really struggled to speak up in my relationships is because whenever I did speak up, I was told that I was wrong, I was ridiculous, I was being stupid, I was making it up. I was the problem. Why was I making a fuss over nothing? And one of these examples is I, on the way out to this Caribbean island that we were going to live on, me and my ex went on a holiday. So we went on a 10-day trip to Belize. And this was the first time we'd ever been on holiday. We'd been together for a few years at this point and we'd traveled together. We'd met in Thailand, we'd lived in Australia, we'd traveled around a bit. And this was the first like holiday we'd had. So I was like super excited, but got tonsillitis. So I was feeling pretty ropey. But we'd got dressed up one night, gone out to a bar, had dinner, had some drinks, and I can't even believe I'm sharing this. And it got to like midnight, I think it was. It was probably about 11:30, midnight, and we were going on a snorkeling trip the next day. So I was like, okay, let's go back to the room. Like I'm feeling pretty ropey. What with the tonsillitis, the antibiotics are taking it out of me, feeling pretty rough. So we went back to the room, and then he was like, right, I'm gonna go. And I was like, sorry, what? Like, what do you mean you're gonna go? I was like, well, I'm gonna go back out. I was like, you're aware that we're on this trip together, like, this is our holiday and we're getting up in, like, 6 hours to go snorkeling or whatever it was. But we'd met, like, a few people at a bar, and he decided that he was gonna go back out on this night out with this girl that he'd met in this bar. And despite my tears, despite me being angry about it, despite me saying, "Are you fucking joking?" He left and went out. And 2, 3 hours later came back with me still sobbing, obviously having not slept. And when I tried to speak to him about it, I was told that I was out of order. I was overreacting. Why was I making such a fuss about it? I was like, why should me being ill ruin his night? And for years, I accepted bullshit behavior along those lines because I was scared of being abandoned. I was scared of speaking up. I was scared that he would leave me. Even now, which actually leads me on to the next thing, was justifying their behavior. And I even find myself doing this now. So I would experience behavior like that and then I would justify it. I would justify it and I would make excuses by saying things like, oh, he doesn't mean it. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a bad person. He's got a lot on his mind. And I would take his opinion on board. I would then start to believe that, okay, maybe I am overreacting. It is his holiday as well. Why I don't want to ruin his holiday. I would justify that behavior and I would allow their, I don't know, opinions, their side of the story to take over my side of the story. Even when I found my ex messaging other girls, he got upset about it. And I was like, "Oh, there, like, don't be upset. Like, it's okay. You don't need to punch a wall. Like, don't be upset. I'm fine. I'll get over it." This is not good. This is not good at all. And for so long, I kept these behaviors to myself. I think deep down, I sometimes knew that they were as appalling as they were. But for the longest time, I didn't speak up. I didn't share these things with my friends until recently, as in the last couple of years after the breakup, where I have shared little stories like this. And it's only in sharing those stories. I even shared the story that I just told you about the like going back out on a night out when it was like our holiday with some random girl we just met. I told that story to my friend yesterday, and the change in her face reminded me that it was as bad as I thought it was. Because for so long, I sacrificed and prioritized and put these people on a pedestal because my confidence was low and because I was so terrified that they would leave me. I thought that being in that shitty relationship, which I didn't think was shitty at the time because I was head over heels in love with these people, but I thought that being in that bad relationship with the bad behavior and not speaking up was better than me using my voice and potentially being abandoned for standing up for myself. Now, to get through this, to work through these mistakes and get myself to a point where I'm able to set solid boundaries and stick to those boundaries, the biggest thing I've done for myself is working on my self-worth. So if you take anything away from this masterclass at all, focus your time and energy on building your self-worth. Because when you feel worthless, you will let other people treat you like you are worthless. And you are not. You are worthy, you are deserving, you are lovable, you are enough. You have to believe that. And when you believe that and when you behave in that way, that's how other people will treat you. And I'm not saying it's your fault that you've been treated badly. That's not what I'm saying at all. I don't want that to be miscommunicated. But when you show someone that you know what you deserve and what you will and won't accept, people will start to acknowledge that. And the people who will try and take the piss or overstep your boundaries or treat you in a bad way will take themselves out of your life. They'll fuck off because they won't like it. They won't like having someone stand up to you. They won't like having someone stand up to them. They'll just leave. And when you work on your self-worth, the fear of being abandoned lessens. I'm not saying it goes away completely. There are still moments where I do have that fear of loss and that worry that I might be abandoned or that worry that I might lose someone that I've started investing my time and energy in. That's still there. but it's nowhere near like it used to be. Now my self-worth and my self-respect is so much greater than my emotions. So if someone was to treat me badly, no matter how much I felt for them, no matter how into them I was, my self-worth is stronger than that, and I have the ability to walk away. So some of the things that I did to build my self-worth were things like actively doing nice things for myself on a daily basis that might seem a bit extravagant to people. So things like having an hour-long bubble bath in the middle of the day. Yeah, I've got stuff to do. Everyone's got stuff to do. But my body needs this bath. My body wants to sit and chill in the bath for an hour and watch some shit on Netflix. And I'll light my candles and I'll have my bubble bath and I'll lay there and not worry about the things on my to-do list because I'll go, I'm worthy of this. I'll do my hair and makeup. I'll wear my favourite perfume. I'll put on an outfit that I love just to work from home. Might not even be leaving the house. I'm not leaving the house today and I've done my hair and makeup. And I do it because I'm worthy of spending time on myself to make myself feel the best that I can feel. And I also make sure that I do these things on a regular basis without it needing to be a reward. So I don't say to myself, when you've created this much content, when you've ticked these things off your to-do list, when you've done the washing, when you've responded to all your messages, when you've done stuff for everybody else in your life, then you can have these things. Then you can do nice things for yourself. They're not rewards. They are things that I do for myself on a regular basis to make myself feel good because I am worthy of feeling good every single day. I am worthy and deserving of honoring my needs without me needing to have achieved something first. On that same, like the same thing that has helped me with this, like on that same page, convincing myself that I'm worthy. So the things that I just shared are more things that I've been doing, whereas the convincing myself that I'm worthy are things that I've been telling myself. So the more you tell yourself something, the more you start to believe it. So for all those years where I told myself so many times that my exes were out of my league, they were better than me, I didn't deserve them, how could they be with someone like me? I was like blown away by the idea that they'd want to be my girlfriend. I believed that. I believed they were out of my league because I told myself that so many times. Whereas instead, I now repeat to myself over and over, you are worthy for who you are. Anytime I felt unworthy, anytime I feel unworthy or like I don't deserve something, I catch that thought and I flip it on its head. Anytime I catch myself saying something like, oh no, you need to do your to-do list before you eat your lunch. Do I fuck? Absolutely not. I'm going to do whatever I want to do when I need to do it because I'm worthy of that. And whenever my brain tries to tell me that I am not good enough, I catch the thought and I flip it. I am worthy, I am deserving, I am enough. And lastly, I really stepped outside of myself. This was a bit of a tricky one to do, but I stepped outside myself and I asked myself if someone dared to treat my friend this way, if someone dared to behave like this towards my friend, if my friend's partner did this, what would I do? And I realized that I would be absolutely fucking horrified on their behalf. And I would tell them to their face that their partner's behavior was unacceptable on all levels. I would not let my friend justify or convince themselves that one, they weren't enough, and two, that their partner's behavior was acceptable. I would not let them make excuses for a man if he treated her the way that I was treated in my past relationships. And I do just want to say, like, obviously, do I want to say this? Because now I feel like I'm justifying their behaviour. I was going to say that, like, they weren't assholes all the time. Like, we did have good moments as well. But I think that's just me, like, justifying things again. So we'll just ignore that sentence that I was about to say. And we will move on to the last section, which is having the time of my love life. So what did it look like before I started having the time of my love life? So I felt like, and this was very much post-breakup, I felt like my whole identity was that person's girlfriend, very particularly in my last relationship. I felt like my identity, especially when we were living on that Caribbean island, because all of our friends were his friends first. They were people he worked with, people he socialized with, his customers. That's where I made all my friends. So I just felt like I was his girlfriend. That was my identity. And then when we split up, I lost my identity because that was no longer who I was anymore. So I didn't have a life of my own, which is also crazy when you think about the fact that we did long distance for so much. So even in the months where we were apart, I still felt like my life wasn't my own. I didn't have my own life because I would prioritize messaging him, having calls with him. When he came back for a couple of days, I'd make sure that I'd go and see him. I sacked off friends multiple times so that could go and spend time with him. I didn't have a life of my own. And the biggest mistakes that I made during that period where I wasn't having the time of my love life, which to be honest is probably the majority of my life, really. It's only been in the last couple of years that I've really started enjoying my love life. I mean, it's not that it's been that existent, but in terms of like dating, meeting new people, starting seeing someone new for a consistent period of time, the biggest mistakes I made before I've got to this place were not keeping part of my life to myself. This is a mistake that I made in every single relationship that I've ever had because I was so obsessed. I put here, I was so obsessed with the two big loves of my life that I wanted to do anything and everything with them. So I didn't want to keep parts of my life for me. I didn't want to have time on my own. I didn't want to do my own thing. I was never able to recharge, to reconnect with myself. And then when it ended, I felt like my life was over because I wouldn't keep a part of my life to myself. Whereas now, no matter who I date, no matter what my future relationships look like, I will guarantee that I will have time for me. I will have time, I will have space, I will do activities for me, I will socialize with my friends, I will do all the things that I want to do. I will make sure that even if it's an hour a day, few hours a week, even when I've got kids, there will be times where I will have my own time. I will prioritize parts of like keeping a part of my life to myself. And I will encourage my partner to do exactly the same because I think that is really healthy. He can have his life, I can have my life, and then we can have our lives together. Another mistake I made was not prioritizing the things that I enjoy. So I didn't make space for my own joy and I relied on my exes to make me feel happy. Oh my God, how many of us can relate to this one? um, it's not fair on anyone. You have to be your own source of happiness. And this really clicked for me when I watched an interview with Jada Pinkett Smith. I think it was when she did like a red table talk on it, I think it was that one, or it was another interview that I saw her in. But she talked about how resentful she was of her husband, Will Smith, obviously, because he was living the life that he wanted to. He was making himself happy. He was prioritizing his happiness. And she was resentful because she wasn't as happy as he was. But she wasn't prioritizing her own happiness. She was expecting her husband to make her happy. And that's not how it works. Yes, obviously, we want our partners to make us happy. We want our partners to add to our happiness in life, but we have to make ourselves happy first. We have to prioritize our own happiness, prioritize our own joy. Because when you do that, you can bring your happiness into a relationship. You can come together as two happy, fulfilled people. And that makes for such a better relationship. Not only is it a more positive relationship that you're living in, but then when you have those moments that are tougher than others, when you're going through shitty phases of the relationship, because let's be honest, relationships are up and down, when you're going through those hard times, because you're focusing on yourself individually as well, you can come through those tougher times stronger. You can handle those tougher times stronger, especially if you are a happier person who is feeling fulfilled. Another mistake I made was making my life about that person. So my day would always be spent waiting for the other person to get home from work, wondering what the other person what was thinking. Was thinking, yeah, I mean, that's not on my list, but probably true. What the other person wanted to do, asking, like, worried about why the other person didn't want to spend their free time with me. I would spend my day when I lived on the Caribbean island and I was working for myself at this point as a social media manager. I would spend my day thinking, "Oh, when he gets home from work tonight, I'm gonna see if he wants to go out for dinner because I really feel like getting dressed up and we can go and have a cozy little date night." Or I'd think, "Oh, I'm gonna make this for dinner tonight and maybe we can have a bottle of wine together and we can sit and chat about our days." And I would plan our evening in our head thinking, "You've been out at work all day, you're gonna wanna spend some time with me tonight." And I'd say a good 70% of the week, he'd get home from work and I'd be like, "Oh, we can do this. And I was thinking about doing this for dinner, or do you want to go here? Or, oh, I haven't started making this, or whatever." And he'd come in and be like, "No, I'm going to the park with so and so." And I'd be like, "But why, why don't you want to see me? Like, why don't you want to spend time with me? What have I done? Like, you've been with these people all day. Well, I don't get it. Why is spending your evening with them when you've spent all day with them more important than spending the evening with me?" And because I made my life about that person and the way that person acted, it left me in a really, really crappy state. Then I've kind of touched on this one a little bit as well, but allowing my fear of being abandoned to stop me from speaking up. So there were a couple of occasions where I did actually say that I was upset about certain behavior, but that was met being told that I was out of order, that I was overreacting, that I was making a fuss out of nothing, that I was essentially the problem. So there was one time where my ex was in another country. This was like literally right before we broke up. My ex was in another country because he'd moved there and I was going to go out and follow him, and we're finally we were going to move to Bali. And that's the place that I'd always wanted to go. So I was like, "Oh my God, right. For the first time in our relationship, we're actually going to the place that I want to go to. This is amazing. I'm so excited." He couldn't wait for me. He was like, "No, I don't want to wait. I just don't want to be in the UK. So I'm going to go out there ahead of you. I'll get a job. I'll find us a place to live. You can come out with me." And I'm like, "Great." Then a friend of his goes out to, or like on a trip there for a couple of weeks. And we're having a conversation, me and him, over FaceTime, and he's like, "Oh, me and her are gonna share a room for the next couple of weeks." And I was like, "I don't know if I actually feel comfortable with that. Like that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable. I don't think that's really what I'd like." And he was like, "Well, I've already booked it, so why are you making a fuss about it?" And I was like, "Okay, cool. Um, that's pretty hurtful that you wouldn't even run it by me, but great." So in that respect, I got told that I was being out of order and I was making a fuss. And then a week or so later, whilst they were sharing rooms together, I called him, or he called me one night, and it was the night before I had a massive, like a really important day with a client the next day. He called me and we're chatting, and then he's like, "Oh, I think the phrase was stark bollock naked on the balcony," like, while he was chatting to me, because obviously it was nighttime, Bali, or whatever, how many other hours ahead, and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm just sat, like, naked outside." And I was like, "The fuck are you doing naked? Because you're sharing a room with this girl." And instead of admitting that he'd done something wrong or whatever, or instead of owning the fact that that is not a nice thing to do to your partner of 5 years, or instead of taking any responsibility or any ownership, he started shouting down the phone at me, telling me that I'd ruined his evening because he'd called me to have a nice chat with me. And all he wanted to do was catch up with me. And now I'd ruined it because I'd made a big fuss about nothing, because it didn't matter that he was naked in this room with another girl. I was just making a massive fuss. And because I was so scared that he would abandon me, I backed down. I apologized. I was so terrified that if I stood my ground, he would leave me. So I did whatever I could to fix it and to make sure that we weren't arguing and to get us back to a better place. And it wasn't until I told this story a few days later to our best friend at the time. He was a mutual best friend at the time. I still see him now and his wonderful fiance. Like, I see them as much as I can. I was sharing this story with them when they came to visit me, and they both looked at me absolutely horrified, and they were like, "Beck, that's not a relationship. That's not. That's not a relationship, that's not healthy. Because I'd shared how scared I was that if I said to him, "This isn't acceptable again," that he would leave me, and that's what they were saying to me, like, "It's not a relationship. This is not normal behavior. This is not healthy." But my fear of abandonment kept me there, and it makes me feel a bit sick to say this, but I genuinely believe that if he hadn't ended the relationship a week later, I would have stayed. I would have stuck around, I would have moved my life back to the Caribbean where he was going, and I would have remained in that relationship until he eventually ended it. Because I was scared of being abandoned, my self-esteem was pretty low, I felt like I wasn't good enough, he was out of my league, and I believed that I didn't deserve better, which is the last mistake that I made, believing that I didn't deserve better. At the time, I believed that he was the best that I was gonna get. I was so infatuated with him, and I thought that putting up with that poor behavior to stay with them was better than standing up for myself and losing them. And it wasn't about being single, because being single has never bothered me. It was about losing that specific person. I thought being in this toxic, unhealthy, codependent, anxious state was so much better than living my life without them. Now that relationship obviously ended, and what helped me get through all of this, what helped me get through everything that I've just shared with you, to get to the point where I genuinely am having the time of my love life in terms of dating, in terms of meeting green flag men, in terms of the person that I'm seeing currently. What helped me get through that, first of all, was prioritizing time for myself, prioritizing me, dating myself, being with myself, taking care of myself, and taking time away from men and dating to heal. I needed so much time to heal myself, and it was a good 18 months before I even joined a dating app after the breakup, because I needed space to ensure that I would never, ever allow myself to be treated that way again. And I would never, ever accept behavior like that again. I prioritized myself, and I do still prioritize myself. I think that is so important, and I want to encourage you. If you take anything away, I know I said this phrase earlier. If you take anything away from this, prioritize yourself. Take yourself out on dates. Love yourself. Shower yourself with affection. Take care of yourself on a daily basis, not as a reward, but just because you deserve to be taken care of. Another thing that helped was getting crystal clear on what I want and learning what I deserve. So I was I started wait, hang on. I started convincing myself that the best was yet to come, and I really could have the relationship that I dreamed of. So I had to look at my wish list. So I wrote a wish list in my teens of all the things I wanted from a man. Manifested that man when I was 21. He broke my fucking heart. Redid that list, rewrote the list, met my ex, or like my most recent ex. Amazing. Great, kind of, when I say great 5 years, obviously the stories I've just told you prove otherwise, but I've just got to change my legs over. Um, Manifested him, and yeah, was not the amazing relationship that I deserved. And then wrote a new list. Me and my ex split up, and I still wasn't crystal clear on what I wanted. And then last year, when I was doing a lot of, when I was creating the confidence course, I wrote a module on raising your relationship standards, and I worked myself through all the exercises that I was putting in there that I'd worked through them before, but I kind of brought them all together and worked through them all together in one. And that led me to creating a new list and getting really, really clear on what I want, and believing that I deserve to get what I want, believing that I deserve to have those desires. That was a huge bit. You have to get yourself to the point where you believe that the person you want to manifest is available and you are deserving of them. The other thing that helped me to get through this so that I could live my best love life was having the confidence to walk away when I know something isn't 100% for me. And in saying that, like, not giving people chances because I feel like I should. I when I first started dating, I dated some really nice guys. I dated some really good guys. We had some really lovely dates, but I knew that they weren't my person. I knew that they weren't the one. And people were like, "Oh, but you had such a nice time with him. Like, give him a second chance. Like, go on another date with him and the spark might grow." I'm like, "No, because if I know that he's not for me now, I know in my gut whether he's my person or not. I know that. I know what my person feels like. My gut knows what my person feels like. I'm not going to give people chances just because, one, there's a fear that there might not be another good guy around the corner, or two, just because somebody else is telling me that I need to give people a chance and that the spark might not always come and sometimes it takes time. Like, I know myself. I know myself. I know what I want. I know what feels good to me. I am willing to walk away from someone if they do not fit my list, if they do not fit the bill of what I'm looking for, if they don't make me feel how I want to feel, and if they're just not my person. I'm not settling anymore. I'm not settling for the bare minimum. I'm not settling for some of the wish list. I'm getting everything that I desire because that's what I deserve and that's what you deserve too. And then lastly, and this is a really important one, continuing to work on the feelings and patterns that come up. So this was this has been going on for the last couple of months as I've started dating a really lovely guy. He's a really decent guy, but there have been new things that have come up from my past. There are things that have been triggered, there have been new obstacles to overcome, there have been new patterns to look at, and they have only been able to come up because I'm seeing someone new. So they can only come up within this environment. So there's no way that I could have worked on these things being single. I had to wait until I was seeing someone for a significant amount of time before these new layers of shit, these new patterns, these new feelings came up for me to be able to heal them and to move on and to kind of address them. So this leads me on to an important announcement. And don't forget, if you've got questions, drop them in the chat and I'm going to answer them once I've shared this. Everything that we've talked about in this workshop, we can work on together. We can get you to the point where you're also having the time of your love life. We can get you healing from heartbreak. We can unpick those unhealthy patterns that are shitting all over your dating experience. We can get you to the point where you set and stick to solid boundaries. You can raise your relationship standards. You can manifest the one. We can get you to that space in two different ways. So first of all, there is Level Up in Love. So this is a 3-month close proximity coaching container dedicated to helping you date with confidence, build better boundaries, raise your relationship standards, and finally manifest the dream relationship that you have always deserved. Now, the vibe of this, it's a group thing. So the vibe is a maximum of 8 people inside a private WhatsApp chat where you receive coaching on a weekly basis, Monday to Wednesday. You bring your struggles, you talk about what's going on, you ask for help, you need confidence tips, whatever it is, you bring whatever's going on in your love life to the group chat. And you receive coaching that you can then go away and implement the next couple of weeks, or that for the rest of the week. So it's not about hour-long trainings, weekly coaching calls. There's no giving you a one-size-fits strategy to find love. It is about meeting you where you are. So we will work through anything and everything that you bring to the table. That starts on the 8th of April. And as a special bonus, you also get immediate access to the confidence course, which is my 6-module self-paced course to help you create unwavering self-confidence in all areas of your life. For you, if you've been watching this masterclass, if you enter the code DEBRIEF at the checkout, you save yourself an extra 15% as a special little bonus. So I will leave the link somewhere in the chat after this is finished, or I'll be emailing out to those of you that have signed up. So that's the first amazing thing. Really excited about that. Starts 8th of April. But if that doesn't feel quite right, if that feels like too much of a commitment right now, but you know that you want to improve your love life, I've got an alternative option for you, because I've had quite a few people come to me that love the idea of level up in love, but it's just a little bit too much at the moment. Then we have Loved Up. So Loved Up is starting on Monday, the 25th, and it is a confidence boosting membership dedicated to helping you let go of insecurity, build more self trust, and improve all areas of your love life. So, whether you are single and ready to mingle, whether you're healing after heartbreak, you're not so happily coupled up, or you are head over heels in love and you want to make things better, you and your love life are welcome here. So, this is a special membership community. You can join for 6 months or you can join for 12 months. And on a weekly basis, on a Monday, you can get your questions, you can get coaching support from me, you get your questions answered, receive coaching support from me via a private Voxer broadcast channel. So this is perfect if you know that you need some support in whatever your love life situation is at the moment, whether you're dating, whether you want to start dating, whether you're going for a breakup and you need some coaching support, but you're not looking for something to one-to-one, you're not looking for something that intense, you're maybe a bit of an introvert and you don't want to engage with anyone else, this is the perfect place for you. Now, there's currently a founder's rate, which is going until the 12th of April. After the 12th of April, the price will be going up. So again, I'll drop the link in the comments for you, and I'll be emailing it out for you then. If you have any questions about either of those, do let me know. And if you've got any questions before we go, then again, let me know. But I'm so excited about this and I've enjoyed this so much. It has been the longest time since I've done a live, and it's my first ever live on YouTube. So that's exciting. If you're not subscribed to the Date with Confidence podcast YouTube channel, which is where you're watching this right now, then please do subscribe, because I am looking to grow the community over here as well. If you don't listen to the Date with Confidence podcast, then what you doing? Where you been? Listen there, because that's got so many good episodes for you to support you in your dating life and to help you date with confidence. If anything comes up, or if you're watching the replay and you've got a question, drop it in the chat. I'm sorry, I need to burp. Oh dear, I should probably put the links in here, really, shouldn't I? I'm going to put that in there so you can check it out now. And yeah, if you've got anything to say afterwards, if you've got any feedback, you can come find me on Instagram. Hang on, I can't do two things at once. You can come and find me on Instagram. I'm at RebeccaLucyH, or Date with Confidence podcast. Come tell me what you thought of the masterclass. It'd be really nice to hear from you. I am also planning on running more of these dating debrief events, obviously with different themes and perhaps not so long, because this has been a long one. But for those of you that know me, like, once I get chatting, can't stop me. So I'm going to go now before I just waffle on for days on end. But I hope you've enjoyed this. Tell me how you felt. Say hello in the chat. Oh, you've already said hello. Hi. Tell me how you found it. Leave me some nice words. And yeah, I will see you very soon, I'm sure. Bye.